no worries.
Yeah.
Maybe Christina, I don't know.
You need a,
I
Huh.
turned mine in a long
Why
time
is
ago.
that?
It's not working? Uh-oh.
What, I thought something got home, it got on at home?
Yeah, I
But
probably
it
should do
doesn't want to
it.
get on yet.
Okay. Okay. Anybody need
What's going on, Cameron?
Yes, let's do it.
I'm good.
Thank you.
You want me to move down?
Huh?
Or no?
Yeah.
Can I move down? Then I don't have to write notes. I'll be...
Good evening. Welcome to the Shenendehowa Central School District Board of Education Business Meeting for 23 May.
We have to say the
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Welcome to our meeting. We started at 6 to call the order and went into an executive session to discuss collective bargaining as well as 2 personnel issues. And now we're going to go back into our public session. Let's start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. One quick announcement, Mrs. Rajat could not be here for a medical reason, but we should be taken care of by the time of the next meeting by far. And that's all I have. Let's motion to adopt the agenda. Mr. Casey first, Mrs. Stevenson second. All in favor? Okay. This is a study session. It's designed for the purpose of having administrative updates to the Board of Education. There are no public comments at a study session. Residents may attend the next scheduled business meeting on June 6th and or contact the board by email with comments or suggestions. All questions come into the Office of Public Information Officer and are shared with the board and or superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions and concerns are typically addressed by the board president. Operational questions and concerns are typically addressed by the superintendent and or designee. So at this point, we'll turn over to Dr. Robinson for your superintendent comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Presley. Recognizing we have a lot of presentations tonight, I'll be very brief. And I would like to ask Mr. James Trainer to come forward. We're privileged as a school district to have our students do many great things, and we see that tonight from our art students who will be presented. But we also have a young man who will be receiving a special recognition. I would like to have Mr. Trainer do so.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. It's good to be back. I'm wearing a little different hat, a little different uniform tonight, but it is good to be back and to talk with everyone. Tonight, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Jim Trainer, by the way, and tonight I'm here on behalf of West Point Admissions to award a full 4-year scholarship to one of your 2016 graduates. The scholarship includes a salary, tuition, room and board, medical and dental expenses, and is valued at $350,000. This young man, who will be going into West Point this year, has already accomplished himself at the collegiate level, both academically and athletically. He has spent a full year in leadership training as an ROTC cadet as well. Now, a little bit about West Point and the process. Each year, about 13,000 students apply for admission to West Point, and about 1,000, or under 10%, actually get admitted. Each of those candidates must also obtain a nomination from their congressman, their senator, the vice president, or the president of the United States. Most people don't know that West Point is among the nation's top academic institutions. We offer 30 different academic majors, and we've produced more Rhodes Scholars than any other college or university in the country, with the exception of Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. U.S. News & World Report recently ranked West Point as the most difficult school to get into in the country, and Forbes has said that it provides the best college education available in America today. West Point is also the world's premier leadership institution. And we boast among our graduates such great leaders as Generals Lee and Patton, MacArthur, Schwarzkopf, Presidents Grant, Eisenhower, and many other great leaders and captains of industry. Now, our candidates are well-rounded in three main areas: academics, athletics, and leadership. The incoming class will have average SAT scores in each of the three subject areas of 650 points. 90% of them will have earned varsity letters. 60% of them will have been varsity team captains. And many others will have been class presidents, Eagle Scouts, and boys and girls state representatives. Now, upon graduating from West Point, this young man who we're going to recognize tonight will be commissioned as an Army officer, and he'll be in charge of soldiers all over the world. His family will share in the sacrifice of his being away from home and potentially in harm's way. But we're confident he has what it takes to accomplish not only that mission, but to also become a leader of character for a lifetime of service to the nation. And therefore, on behalf of the superintendent, it gives me great pleasure to present this certificate of admission to the United States Military Academy to Kevin Gardino. I think your dad wants to get one.
Amazing accomplishment.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Trainer, and it's always interesting to see Mr. Trainer in his other life, being a former board member here and certainly service to the country is appreciated. And just before we introduce Mr. Roselli, I just want to use Kevin for an example of, in particular for our young people, of pursuing your dreams. And sometimes it's a straight line to get there, sometimes you got to do this to get back to where you really want to go, and never give up on whatever that dream is. And he's one of those young men who exemplified that, of doing what I want to do, and I'm going to figure out a way to get to that point. So there's a lesson in that as well. So Kevin, thank you for being a lesson for all of us. And speaking of lessons for all of us, we have some tremendously talented young people here in Shen, in the artistic realm, and I joke all the time that I live in a house of talented young people, and I have no idea where they get the talents from. Must be from their mother. So I'm going to have Mr. Roselli come forward and introduce the art program. We try to showcase, come on, Frank, we try to showcase at different board meetings, different dimensions of Shen, recognizing the same young person who is a tremendous artist, is the same young person who's a tremendous athlete, who's the same young person who's a tremendous academic, and so we try not to discount one versus the other, because we want to have kids find their talent, find their niche, find their thing that they have passion for, and run with it fully. And so it's one of those areas we like to showcase tonight. So Mr. Roselli.
First off, good evening, and thanks to Dr. Robinson, the administrative team, and the Board of Ed, of course, for giving me the opportunity tonight for a few minutes to showcase some of the great things going on in our art program. So I thought what we'd do tonight is I'll kind of just review, quick overview of what we do program-wise, and then I'm going to turn over to Ms. David, who's going to highlight some accomplishments of our most talented students, and then we're going to turn over briefly to Mrs. Way, who's going to talk about some of the real-life, authentic experiences our students get within our program. I'll get to it. But I appreciate the support, Dr. Robinson. So, as far as art goes, it's a program that encompasses first grade all the way through seniors. At this moment, or in any given year, we've got about 65 to 70% of the student body enrolled in some type of art class. At the elementary level, every student gets art one time per week for 50 minutes. So if you compare that to what's going around in the capital region, we're either on par or a little bit ahead of other schools in terms of the seat time. In middle school, students sit in art in 6th grade for 10 weeks, a regular 40-minute class. In 7th grade, that goes to 20 weeks. We do not currently have formal art in 8th grade. And then, of course, we have a number of electives at the high school level, starting with studio art, which is our entry-level art course, and that leads to a number of different electives students can take, including photography, graphic design, advanced drawing and painting classes, ceramics, so on and so forth. The only art program right now that exists in 8th grade is the advanced studio course, which is targeted at students who indicate aptitude and interest in art, and it gives them a fast track to get through advanced placement art and to complete that by the end of 11th grade, so that way, by the time they are seniors, they have a portfolio prepared for college admission. So that, in a nutshell, is our program. I'll turn it over to Ms. David, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the shows we participate in, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. We're very proud as a resident of the district and as faculty to share with you some of the highlights of what our students are involved with, our faculty. The Olympics of the Visual Arts is a state competition that our students participate in with Mary Jenny, art teacher. These are some of their artworks that were on display. Actually, right now at the Half Moon Town Pavilion is the art show, and many of these art pieces are on display. At the high school level, as students come into 9th grade, they're able to participate in the Martin Luther King Art and Essay Celebration through Siena College. We have several students that participated. Their art was selected for the program and also for different posters of the event. The Saratoga All-Star show highlights different two-dimensional and three-dimensional work at the high school level. BOCES Art Show in Latham is also a regional show. Many schools participate. We've had several students in that show as well. Dr. Robinson's son participates, as many others, in the Media Arts Festival. This year, Shenendehowa did wonderful. We had several students win awards at that with their graphic design, film and video, photography. These are some examples. And again, the films are on display at the Half Moon Town Hall, or the Half Moon Pavilion. These are some graphic pieces done by Ms. Way's graphic design students. The three-dimensional show is an opportunity for students that are in ceramics and sculpture to showcase their artwork as well. And we have several students working in clay doing just that. The regional art show this year was at the Alpaca Gallery in Albany, and we were fortunate that we had several students participate in that as well. The Hyde Art Collection is a pretty distinguished show. It's juried, it's pretty prestigious, and out of a few hundred students that were admitted, they jury it down to 100, and we had 8 that made the top 100, and there are over a dozen schools that enter, so we were pretty proud of them. These are examples of art from that show. Another show that students love is the Southern Saratoga County Women's Club. It features art and crafts, so students in every class at the high school level participate and are awarded monetary awards, so they like that. This year, we reached out into the community more with the art club, doing work at Sensational, the Clifton Park Town Library, with CAP Teens, Make-A-Wish Foundation. We're trying to get the arts into the community. The National Art Honor Society completes murals. They've designed, if you go to the high school into the bathrooms, they've redesigned all the bathrooms, which have some amazing artwork. We also are in alliance with the Malta League of Arts and help offer scholarship to an art student. Students are provided opportunity to donate their artwork to be on display for different events. So this was an event, Tina Daly was the teacher here at Shen, and there's a scholarship for her name. Students had their art highlighted. Additionally, several art students have been featured by the Community News Student Spotlight. They participate in the Scholastic Art and Writing Competition, the New York State Congressional Art Show. art used in the yearbook. And right now, these are a few pictures of the art that is on the display in Half Moon. These are a few close-ups. We are proud of these are just a portion of our students that are going on to college for art. One of our students actually two have been accepted into the Rhode Island School of Design and Savannah College of Art and Design, and those are pretty prestigious art colleges. So we're very proud of all the students who are pursuing art once they leave Shenendehowa. This is a sampling of some student art that will take this onto their career. And with that, Miss Sally Way.
And my sidekick Maddie here. So we are fortunate enough with our graphic design classes to be able to give to the community, and our students do work all year long for nonprofits in the community. So every year it's different and every class is different. So I thought it might be fun to show you guys some of the things we've done just this year. And this isn't all of them, and then we'll end with a kind of a big presentation at the end. So yeah, we do some logos. You might see that if you go to Cafe Lena. They have a new t-shirt design. Catholic Charities, who did some posters. T-shirt designs for Saratoga Rowing Association. A couple different logos. We worked with the Chamber of Commerce every year for, well, quite a few years. This year we did the Round Lake Business Association. So we have the, also we help out our own Shen community as much as we can. And we end with our big billboard competition, which just was last week on the 17th. So I have Maddie here with me today, and she can talk to you a little bit about her winning design this year. Go for it, Maddie.
Hi, I'm Maddie. At least I got that over with. Thought I was going to forget that part. So for this project in graphic design, it was different for me because I had a personal connection to it. Immediately, I thought of Deanna Rivers when I found out it was about DWI because she was very close with me and my family, and she was like another older sister. I hope that my billboard makes a difference somewhere, and I hope that my billboard touches others the way that Deanna used to touch her friends and family before. Thank you.
Okay, and then finally, I'd like to just announce some students' names of some award winners. I could be here all night talking about how great the students are in our program, also how talented our teaching team is. We are fortunate to have them all on board. So students, if I call your name, please stand, and then when I get through all of them, perhaps we can give some round of applause and recognition to these talented kids. So for the Hyde Show, among the top 100 students, we have Hannah Butts, Allie DeRusso, Katie Flood, Kate Healy, Megan Howard, and Cindy Pang. In the Media Fest, some of our winners were Jesse Alsdorf, Allie DeRusso, Kate Healy, Caitlin Sokola, Dominic Zumbo. Our high school regional show, our award winners were Garth Brunner, Kaylee Park, Matthew Vigilante, and Sean Volger. In our 3D show, the award winners were Jesse Barth, Destiny Kiersing, Sue Misevis, Jesse Sokol, and Sean Volger. And then finally, in our Saratoga Women's Club, we have quite a few winners. They are Destiny Kiersing, Elizabeth Kopstev, Eric Robinson, Garrison Schaller, Jason Jin, Jessica Liu, Katie Flagel, Kate Hunter, Kate Miller, Maddie McGill, Marissa DeSorbo, Megan Howard, Samantha Krill, Sarah Collins, Se-Young Shu, Sheridan Messier, Sky Zagorski, and Sophia Ventrano. How about a round of applause for those? To be able to stop by the clubhouse at the town of Half Moon and you see the sign, that's one of Jesse Alsdorf's photos that we used. So another round of applause for Jesse on that one. So in case you're wondering, the clubhouse is over on Route 236, over by the Half Moon, they call it the Half Moon Town Park, and the building itself is called the Clubhouse. So we say the clubhouse at the town of Half Moon Park. It's over by the baseball fields. It's that big building in the center. I think they sell concessions out of the small part of it. That's not where the art show is. We're in the back part of it. It's a pretty phenomenal space. We're lucky to have it. The town of Half Moon donated it to us free of charge. So we have a couple of nights left. It'll be closing at 7 tonight. We're past that, so you missed it. Tomorrow I'll be there 4 to 7, and then Thursday is closing night. So with that said, any of our art students and families, you can join us across the hall. We have a few refreshments for you. Want to shake your hand and say congrats. And thank you, Board of Ed and Dr. Robinson. Appreciate it.
Can I I wanted to say something as a parent of a child who went here and really blossomed in art. I want to assure the parents here that there's actually careers in art. And our daughter graduated, got her master's degree from Rhode Island School of Design. When she was applying to colleges, she only went here to the end of the 10th grade. We had some non-art issues that we needed to deal with that would be dealt with better in a smaller environment. But it didn't matter, because when we went to the colleges, they would say, Shenendehowa, Mrs. Battistoni, oh, okay, and that was it. That was the end of the interview. They were, okay, you'll be in, and she had a lot of choices as to where to go. I have 40 of her paintings in my basement. I'm threatening to put them for sale on eBay because all of a sudden she's discovered several years out, more than 8 years out, that you can sell these paintings and you can make a living doing it, and a good living doing it. So I'm so thankful for the encouragement that she got as a youngster who was struggling socially, but was helped so much with a program like this that it hit her sweet spot and it changed her life. So thank you to all the staff that's involved. Thank you.
I also wanted to comment along the same lines as Mr. Casey. I have one son who is in advertising and makes more money than God, and a daughter who is an architect. And it is the art background that makes the difference.
So great. Thank you. Thank you again appreciate it. Thank you for coming. And that's a great transition, talking about from art to architect. We have here tonight our architect, and she'll be providing an update of sorts, but probably more so just a rendering of some of the work in the high school library. So, Callie, it's all yours. Want to open this?
Perfect. And that's one of the things actually that I always regret, is that I didn't take more art classes. Unfortunately, my guidance counselor had suggested I am a little more heavy in the computing classes, and I ditched the art for that, and it is one of my biggest regrets, because freehand sketching I'm not so good at, and it would really help out in this profession. So congratulations to all of those students. It's wonderful. So as Dr. Robinson said, I'll give a brief update on the capital project. It's been almost a year since the last time that I was here talking to you about these projects. So I wanted to bring everybody up to speed on what projects are into SED and a little bit about the SED review timeline. So right now we have 3 projects into SED. We had tried to package these to get you the most aid. And we had hoped that the way we packaged them, some of them would go through SED a little bit more quickly. But the way the review times shake out, they actually are all going to come out at about the same time. So that strategy didn't work. The first project has a lot of parts and pieces. It's CO detectors, some other SED code requirement things, the press box, stadium lighting, the playground work, and some abatement and sealing work that is related to the carbon monoxide detectors. Second project is the high school lease library renovation. I'll show you some renderings of that in a couple of minutes. And the third is roofing and flooring abatement at high school lease and Gowanna. And there's a little bit of scope left over from the referendum that is yet to be submitted to SED. The hope was that we would get these first 3 projects through and kind of work on surveys and things towards this last bit. Now that the SED review times have really gotten spread out, we're going to have to hit this pretty hard and get it in soon. That would be our goal. So there's some remaining priority 1 and 2 items from the 5-year plan. The potential traffic reconfiguration, which I think you talked about last month. We're still waiting for that grant approval, but that could be done in conjunction with this project, as well as the district-wide signage. And the reason we held off on the signage is that we're starting with site signage, and if we were going to be moving roads and pathways around, it really made sense to do it all at the same time. So we'll be putting that into SED for next summer's work. The SED review time, so you may recall when I was here last year, we mentioned that was the big unknown. And here we are in May, and it's still a little bit of an unknown. When we submitted our projects to SED, the review time was a lot shorter than it had been. In years, we were very excited. We thought we would come out in March, bid in April, and be ready to hit the ground running when school let out. And every Tuesday, we check that SED website, and they update it, and it just kept getting larger and larger, and you can see how long the review time is now. So every week we project, and every week we kind of get bumped a little bit more, but we are projecting we probably won't see approval on these projects until mid to late July. Things could speed up, but we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. Every month, Augie and I get together and say, okay, if it comes out in this month, here's how we can stagger the projects. We finally decided we're just going to have to wait until they come out to come up with that strategy. So once they come out of SED, we're going to take a lot of things into account. What is the bidding climate at that time? If it's the middle of the summer and all the contractors are busy, are they even going to pick up the sets? Or some might say, yeah, we're getting ready for work for the fall, so we really want to. So once we come out of SED, we'll sit down, we'll look at what could be done during what time periods, and talk to some contractors, see what the bidding climate is, and we'll come up with a strategy which we will share with you at that time. Some more exciting things are the high school East library renovation. As I mentioned, that's one of the projects that's into SED right now, and we have done some renderings along the way. You may notice here, when I was with you last, the kind of window wall addition was a curve, and now it's a little bit of a sawtooth. That happened because we did some lighting studies, and we found out that this configuration would actually bring more light into the library.
So this is the view from the
courtyard
area.
Yes. Yep. Here's a view of what the interior would look like. This is standing at the circulation desk and looking out, so you have a good line of sight there. Even though it's a large space, you really can see it everywhere. This is an area coming in off of the corridor. Right now you have a set of stairs on both sides. At one of those stairwells, we will be, you'll still have one side that stairs, the other side will be a ramp. And as that ramp came down, we created a raised platform area that could be a collaborative area. You could actually even teach a class there. It's not enclosed, but it's kind of its own little space. The book stack area. And this is another space, you may recall, maybe, from last year when I showed you. We had 2 enclosed classrooms. And so this is one of those enclosed classrooms. And the neat thing about this is that the glass wall right there can open up. And so this is what it might look like when it's in a classroom configuration. And if you go to the next slide, Dr. Robinson. You could open up that glass wall to have larger meetings or lectures. You could, really could accommodate a lot of different functions. So we're really excited about this, and we think this space we've created enough flexibility in it where you could host a variety of functions, but it's still very student-centered. It still has the aspects and kind of some elements anchored into it of a library, the shelving and some computer counters, but it's really going to be a space of the future for future learning.
Any questions from board members?
A question.
Sure.
On the third slide, I noticed on the high school project, maximize work area for staff and increase seating capacity, which I assume is for students and classroom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, does the square footage change because of the glass courtyard addition, or?
The square footage, the class, or the glass window addition, is a very minimal footprint the way it goes out. Yeah, it allowed for us to build a ramp down into the lower, there's kind of a little sunken rectangular area, so it allowed us to create that ramp. Some of your gain in square footage, though, is where the current offices are, the library office, the copy room. That has all been opened up into library space. Yes, and beyond, behind that, where you have kind of that funny shaped computer classroom, there's 2 computer classrooms, that's all been reconfigured to kind of make the space a little bit more efficient and give you more space to the library proper.
So we anticipate having more seats for students to use in whatever period based on the need for classroom teaching space.
And some of it too is not necessarily even actually more chairs, but location and how spaces are used, because sometimes you can have 50 chairs, but if it's being used by 10 people, 40 of them are not accessible. And so it's one of the big things that we're talking about. And quite frankly, kudos to Dr. Wood and Steve Davidson, who's been kind of, I know my limitation and I don't have that kind of talent nor patience, who's been really thinking about how does that, not only does it look, but also the functionality of the space. And so that's where we just didn't want to build a space that looked fancy and not practical, versus let's make sure we build a very practical, multi-purpose type space and maximize it and allow us to maximize it differently. It's kind of like when you think about here, you have cubbies and each one of them, a little dead space between them. So if we were to reconfigure, we have the dead spaces there, same square footage, but now we can use the spaces differently. So that was a lot of the thinking behind it.
I know it's not our principal thrust on this, but I'm always thinking of, the public use of space as well. Night times, PTA meetings, those kind of things, and whatever else. And we've got the big auditorium, or we've got the small auditorium in the back. And it struck me that this provided some really nice flexibility that we could encourage the public at really after hours kind of use.
Yes, and that's what we had in mind with creating some of these spaces that could be more intimate and then opened into a larger group area.
Looks good.
And although we haven't necessarily landed on furniture, that also impacts use of the space. And you notice that Callie's depiction here, you go from the potential of this to using the same things to create this. And that's the piece that we want to do as well. I mean, it's great that we have these wonderful sturdy tables, but it becomes very difficult some cases to reconfigure them.
Looks like
in
a lot of
different use.
wheels up there. That's underneath there. That's good.
So those are some of the decisions that we'll be making as the process unfolds. But I certainly want to bring the board up to date, because one of the things that we'll do with this, we're going to have big versions of them, correct?
Yes, they are out in my car, actually.
To start putting around, because I think people are wondering, hey, we hear about this thing, what's supposed to be happening, and so we want to at least get the thought process going and at least excitement behind some of the things as we move forward. And so we certainly want the board to see it before we start unveiling some of these things in the public, and hopefully, in July we could actually start doing some things. The problem that we have is timing. If the timing, ideally, the timing would be able to pick up 2 or 3 months in spring, summer, and not having such a huge impact during the school year. And so we have to think about that. Do we have a huge impact during the school year? Do we delay? Those are decisions to be made in the next several months here. So, thank you, Kelly.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's just great. And so we have, and I forgot to recognize that we have Augie Freeman and Freeman Company, and then I keep saying Augie, but it's the Freeman Project Management Group. So they've been great working with us very closely on this process as we move forward. And I And I said to Mr. Flint and I were in a meeting earlier this afternoon, and Don is a trooper and a half, and he said, well, the one good thing is he doesn't have to be the person that's going to have to tell all those people that, the library will be out of commission for the next 3 or 4 months, so get used to it. But that's a reality, and I say that because sometimes people want progress, but they don't want the work that comes with progress. And in order for us to do this library, it's not a good time. It's a project that's going to take time, period. And it's right in the middle of the school, and it's something that there'll be some pinch points, there'll be some squeeze, there'll be some sacrifices, but it's worthwhile squeeze, worthwhile sacrifices, and we'll move forward on this as well. So we're pretty excited about the prospect of this project as we move forward. So the next presentation, and Dr. Woods suggested that we switch it, but I think she'll be relatively brief anyway, is homework and grading, and certainly the board is aware this has been a multi-year process we have gone through, and I'm sure Dr. Wood will comment that we even had presentation at school boards that several board members attended, which I think everyone across the state that we were rock stars because Elizabeth was so wonderful. So this is not a new rodeo for us on this thing, but it's an ongoing piece, and so we'll present that as we move forward. Just want to make the big thing.
Great, thank you. So just to kind of reframe where we're at, we have been working on our homework and grading policies, and we'll provide a little more detail as we go in. But we started, I'm going to say it's been 3 or 4 years since we've been talking about this, recognizing that education has evolved over the last, I'll say it's sharply evolved over the last decade, but it has been evolving over time. And we really wanted to make sure that our policies were in alignment with what is considered to be best practice in the field. And the good news is that research about what is good in terms of grading and homework has evolved over time. And this really propelled us, as part of a larger examination of all instructional policies last year, to look more closely at our homework and grading policies. Updates to these policies have occurred over multiple phases. Last year was really when we were rolling up our sleeves, talking about what should the language look like, what's the research that helps us understand how to put it in policy language without being overly specific, but creating kind of broad guidelines for teachers. And as you recall, we did get considerable feedback in a number of different ways last year, meeting with small groups, and also we conducted a large-scale survey in the fall and had a very high rate of return from our parents and our students and our teachers, and that particular survey included administrators and board members as well, where we were measuring levels of agreement with the theories that we intended to place in the policy. And so about a year ago, we were here providing an overview of the policies, and the board approved the policies. We also knew that because there were some significant changes associated with practice with these policies, that we would be back a year later giving an update as to where we were at. We also knew that changing practice takes time, and we said, please try this out, please work toward this policy. We'll give you a year, try it out, see how it goes, test some things out, have some conversations with colleagues, saying that we would go with a full implementation of these policies in the 2017-18 school year. In terms of an overview of what the policies state, Policy 7214 is our grading policy, and it really focuses in that the central idea behind grading is to support student learning and growth, that it should provide feedback to students and their parents, that there should be consistency, regardless of which teacher to whom you are assigned for that course. They should be weighting things relatively consistently across those courses, that grades should measure learning/achievement, not so much external factors, such as did you turn in your permission slip on time, did you bring in the box of tissues, and certainly no grades for anything punitive, such as no zeros in the grade book for talking in class, etc. The homework policy speaks to the fact that homework may be assigned to extend student learning. The homework policy and its accompanying regulation provide guidelines for the amount of time spent on homework, state that it should be directly related to stated learning objectives, and really give some overall guidelines to teachers in terms of the best way to be assigning homework in the classroom.
As part of our work last year, we had conversations and we got feedback from families about the importance of the policies being a social contract. And some of that came from our work at Policy Review. The fact that we recognize that this is not just about a teacher making academic decisions in the classroom, but it has major implications for students and for parents in terms of how they're engaging with the school system. And we really wanted to be explicit in the policy that we see these as having a social contract, that there is good communication between all parties supporting the same positive end goal for students. We also, and I want to draw attention to the theme or the header on each of these slides, is that homework and grading is about respecting diversity and providing social justice for all students. The fact that we wanted to make sure our grading and our homework policies really emphasized and respected the fact that our students are different, and providing latitude for our teachers to treat these students differently based on their individual needs. The policies give the idea and really enforce the idea that grades should support students' ability to experience academic success. And really in that is the idea that there is latitude with how you go about your grading practices to encourage success, to build on students' confidence as learners. I'll tell you, some of those early labels, they can feel very fixed to students, and those students can feel like it isn't immovable. Like, how do they grow beyond that? We do not want our grading practices to give that. It may be this is where you are now, but this is not a fixed place for you. We support your ongoing growth, and we are here with you to work with you on that. We want students to feel like they are really significant in terms of their role in the classroom. We also want them to understand that our grading practice speaks to our Shen quality assurance. It's a term borrowed from Mr. Presley years ago when he spoke about a Shen quality assurance. And since then, that has become kind of a hallmark of leadership in terms of the academic program. What is our quality assurance? We can have people going well above and beyond, but what is our quality assurance that every one of our 9,800 students will have, regardless of which teacher assignment they have? In terms of homework, our policy speaks to time guidelines. Really, when you roll up your sleeves and get into the research, there is pretty strong evidence that about 10 minutes per grade level tends to be best for most students. That means a first grader would get about 10 minutes of homework, that a high school senior would get about 120 minutes of homework. Not required that they have that much, but the research shows that students doing more than that, there are diminishing returns once they hit over that number. Most of us don't care to have inputs that lead to diminishing returns over time, and there are better ways we can use our time without burning out our students and allowing them to have other opportunities such as athletics, dance, music, time with family, and just general downtime. So we talked in the policies and the regulations about time balance, also emphasizing the fact that we want students to have enough time to complete their assignments across all of their courses, which is something that we did hear from our high school students recently at the Speak Out, which I'll get to more in a minute. And the idea, too, we really wanted to emphasize in the policy that the time guidelines are for teacher assignments. We recognize we have so many students that go above and beyond, and we are not discouraging that. If you choose to spend more time studying, that is well within your right. In fact, we invite and encourage you to do that. That's life. There are times we all have to put in extra effort to get us to a level we appear or we believe is a right measure of where we ought to be in a right fit. But that wouldn't be the consistent assignment from the school or the classroom. We also recognize that students taking more challenging classes such as honors and AP may occasionally have assigned additional work. There is a reality about some of our AP courses that there is a sufficient amount of material that needs to be taught and learned at a high level for our students to have a fair shot when they take those AP exams, and that's a reality. So for our 2016-17 rollout, we really emphasized on going on the learning journey. What is it that we can learn about good grading and homework practices, and which of those practices can we put into our classrooms? We had a major focus on these policies and the related good practices that are associated with them at the September and the March Superintendent's Conference days. Faculty meetings, department meetings throughout the year. Honestly, when I did the survey after March Superintendent's Conference Day, and I asked what more can we do or give us feedback about how the homework and grading went, I had multiple teachers saying, enough already. I've never had so much professional development on one topic in my life. So I felt like, well, we at least can say that we lived up to what we said we would do, which is provide you opportunities for professional development on these topics this year. We also, throughout this year, have been able to identify some of our early adopters, and they have been able to share some of their practices at department meetings with their colleagues. In terms of providing professional development for all, we have a page which Anna Sugarman has developed on the SIL website, so our professional development page. We have a full page dedicated just to best practices when it comes to grading and homework, and so we've got some video clips in there by noted researchers, and if you scroll down, there are some really high quality articles and some book recommendations. And so even if teachers, sometimes you go to a meeting and you're just thinking about it, but you're not quite sure you're ready, we have it here ready and waiting when you're there and ready. So we felt that we had pretty clear expectations this year about everyone working toward the application of the regulation. We also were collecting feedback as we went through the year. In fact, recently, I met with several leaders at the secondary level from some representative STA invited secondary teachers from a few departments, and having just general conversations about how is it going? What are your concerns, if you have them, and how can we move forward in these areas? We also gathered feedback from the High School Senate Speak Out, which was Monday, May 15th, and we had, I would say, probably all told, at least a few hundred students we heard from. And just issued another stakeholder survey in early May, which the results were shared as part of the presentation. It's a similar survey to what we did in fall 2015, but not exact. The fall one, it's the same types of questions, but the fall one of 2015 asked for levels of agreement. This is how's it going in terms of implementation so that we can trace that over time. In terms of the feedback we received, the primary feedback that we're hearing in terms of concern from certain teachers at the secondary level is concerns about the impact of consistently weighted grading categories of the same course. We explained the idea that regardless of which teacher, so if you're assigned to an Algebra 2 course, regardless of which teacher you're assigned to, it kind of makes sense that tests and quizzes would have a similar weight, outside work would have a similar weight, homework would have a similar weight, feeling like teachers have had this year to try to come together and determine what that consistent weighting would be. I think that there's some mostly intellectual understanding and agreement with that. There is still a concern on the part of some individuals that this could potentially be very challenging for some of our struggling students. The fact that if we count homework for so little that small homework amount will actually not be able to help some of those students propel to the higher levels of achievement that they're sometimes relying on. And there are a number of other ways to address that concern, and I think it's actually instructive feedback for us to hear, because we can think about, okay, if that's where we're at in terms of the conversation, these are our next steps to talk about being more responsive with our grading practices and more open-minded with our assessment techniques during the school day, and recognizing the fact that thank you very much for caring so deeply about these students, that this is the concern that comes forward. That's a good place to be. In terms of our high school speak out, our students were clearly asking for consideration of the larger picture. Students in high school are going to, 6 is a small number of courses for many of them. Many of our students have 8, a few have 9, even though we very much recommend against it. They are going all day and at times are trying to juggle assignments from all of them. And the feedback that we heard loud and clear was just please have respect for the fact that we are trying to manage our coursework across and our outside assignments across all of these courses. Several students said that having the opportunity for redos and retakes would help mitigate the impact of occasional low test scores. For some students, it sounded like maybe more than occasionally, but all sounded as though if they had an opportunity to recover from this and continue the learning process, that would help them in the long run, which we certainly understand.
Could I ask you, I don't understand that comment, consideration for larger school
Supposed to be
day.
longer.
A longer school day.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Good, I'm glad you asked that. All right, multiple ways to demonstrate proficiency. Students were saying, it I don't just have to be given a test to know, to have you as my teacher know whether or not I know information, which we know is the case. And so it's a great reminder for us to go back and talk about how the grading policy gives teachers latitude to measure things beyond what would be a typical multiple choice test. There are many other options so that we can know how students are doing. Students, not surprisingly, ask for quality assignments over quantity assignments. They ask for feedback on their work. They ask that big projects be broken into smaller pieces. And they said, we know you're trying to prepare us for college where we're going to get large assignments. However, we are still in high school and we benefit, sometimes we kick the can down the road too long, and we benefit from you checking in with us on our ability to complete this project. And certainly greater consistency in the workload across the year rather than 2 weeks before the end of the quarter getting a number of assignments. They certainly would appreciate spreading it out over time. In terms of the survey feedback, I found this really interesting. The first thing I'll say is far fewer people completed the survey. Now, it could be virtue of time of year, certainly. However, I also thought it spoke to the fact that when people have something to say, they usually find a way to say it. And my biggest takeaway from the survey is we're making progress, because I read through all the open-ended comments, and I did last time and I did this time. We had far fewer this time. They weren't as angry. We still have a lot of people talking about too much homework. That is what comes forward over and over. But it was not to the level of discourse. I mean, I read through a lot of angry, open-ended responses a year and a half ago. I saw some, but not to the level. And I thought, this really is, I think we've made steps in the right direction. I also was very pleased and happy to pass along the fact that several of our families were calling out, great job, Octave, wow, so appreciate the work done this year. I notice a difference. Or please tell Mrs. So-and-so that her homework has been great and the communication has been even better. So several places where we were getting some very positive feedback, which we were also able to pass along. Parents and students are still requesting that we take a careful look at the amount of homework that is assigned, that very often, and you saw that particularly in the survey results at the middle school and high school, very often they are going well beyond, they see their children going well beyond the 10-minute rule. They're also requesting timely feedback, posting of grades in the portal in a timely fashion, redos, opportunities to recover, and also I saw more consistently than I'd seen before that at the middle school requesting a common location for posting of assignments. I'm going to guess that is less of a request and may even long-term be less of a request at the high school, because our high school students tend to be more independent, and at the middle school it's the first time parents are trying to manage assignments from multiple different teachers across the team, and I read several comments saying they're posted in so many different places that I feel like I'm going on a scavenger hunt to find what work my child is supposed to be doing.
Okay, so just, can you break that down a little bit more? Are they saying they can't find like on Google or where?
There are multiple classes kids are taking.
Right.
And some parents aren't used to that transition. The kids aren't used to that transition. Teacher 1 may say, go to my website. Right. Teacher 2 may have it on the chalkboard, the kid had to write it down, and that's
Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So another one might be on the team website. Another one may be posted right within Google Classroom, but in the Google Calendar, not in the classroom itself. So when you pause and you take all the feedback in totality, I would say we have certainly had a wide and varied amount of feedback from the stakeholders involved and engaged in the conversation. There have absolutely been success stories shared. In fact, in talking with several administrators, it's really heartening to hear the number of teachers who have brought to their summative conferences examples of practices that they've changed this year that they're proud of and think have been really progressive in terms of supporting students in their learning. We know that redos are good, and we also know that they're challenging for teachers to manage, and so we have some more work to do in that case. Got the sense that there are some better homework practices happening across the district, which was really nice to hear. And we also know that there are a good number of our teachers are already very much in alignment with practice. Honestly, some of them were in alignment with the updated policies before we put these out. Others have moved in that direction this year, and still others will move in that direction next year. We also know that there are some challenges still happening as a result. I met with a teacher just 2 weeks ago who made a special appointment to come to my office and said, can you please just be more explicit in this policy? I really, they had a very specific want redos to be required. And we said, well, you can do redos or you can do other things. Like, there are teachers out there who just say, this is so important. It's not just important for me as a teacher to be doing this. It's really important for my children who also go to the system. So I'm getting requests for more stringent language in the policies and the exact opposite. Requests for the policies to be less stringent, particularly as I mentioned about the consistent grade weighting in the secondary departments. So the intent is to proceed as planned in terms of moving into 17-18 with full implementation of the policies, continued professional development for all, continued monitoring of the implementation. Certainly where we have folks who are still not quite there yet, providing ongoing support, opportunities for conversation. Very important, because at the end of the day, it really comes down to respecting the unique strengths of our students and the unique strengths that our teachers bring to the classroom, the fact that as an organization we are on this journey together, and the fact that these practices, that it's not just that they're good practices because they're published in a journal, it is because when you implement these practices, it leads to the highest levels of student achievement and engagement in their learning, which is really important. The work done in this area really does speak to our commitment to excellence and every educator's commitment to the success of the children in front of them that they are teaching, and provides each student with the opportunity to maximize the educational potential provided to them here in Shenendehowa.
Mr. Delala.
I don't know how many frames back we're talking about goals for the grading. No question, some of it is very traditional stuff, like assessing both the students and the teachers' success in their process of instructing, informing the parents. But there were some social goals in there, or at least that's how I would characterize them. And I just very curious as to how those things are achieved through grading.
Are you talking about this one?
I think probably.
In terms of the social goals.
How about this, Gary? Yeah. Help students develop their own sense of significance within the classroom, connected to the social and academic environment, that sort of thing.
It really speaks to the fact that when students, regardless of how they do the first time, if they are given an opportunity to demonstrate their ongoing understanding, that label is no longer fixed. I can grow, I can move toward it. Dr. Robinson gives the classic example of, the student who tries out for the basketball team and at the beginning of the season isn't the best player, but at the end of that season, if that student has gotten better and better and better and all of a sudden is the best player, that student isn't still sitting on the bench. Very often our grading practices, because if we're using a traditional mindset, we have a take all the grades and add them up and divide, we can, if we rely on that type of system, penalize students for their early misunderstandings and negate the growth that they've made over time. And if we assign, most of us aren't very good when we start something, right? Because that's what learning is. When you start off, it is fragile, wherever you are. And we want to make that okay. That has to be safe. And when you create safety around that and you say, it is okay, these students will go further than ever when they can stop being afraid of all of the early stuff and really understand that long term, we believe in you and we're going to recognize the work that you've put into this.
Can you actually implement that in terms of quantitative score? I mean, arithmetically, the first 2 or 3 grades that you have will have a great impact on your overall grade, and as you add more and more grades, they become less and less significant in impacting the average.
Right. It depends on how you're structuring your grading practices. Certainly, teacher to teacher, it's the whole, you can drop the 2 lowest scores, right? Which maybe you could drop the 3 lowest, where there are ways to structure a grade book now where you are dropping the low ones. If you provide the opportunity for redos or test corrections, the idea of dropping doesn't matter because you're already giving a chance for recovery. There is also a lot of research on standards-based grading, and every time I talk about standards-based grading, I make the statement that we are not moving wholescale or wholeheartedly to standards-based grading in Shenendehowa. but many of the quality grading practices associated with standards-based grading can be implemented by teachers even within a traditional 0 to 100 point scale, such as, and Tom Guskey is the kind of premier thinker in this area, he'll give teachers multiple examples of if a student looks like this, what score would you give them? If a student looks like this, what score? Actually more accurate than teachers having defined categories with averages in terms of coming together and deciding how is that child progressing toward grade level standard. But that requires a lot of thought and conversation and support. And flexibility, which is, I come back to, the idea behind these practices are not really to be so stringent, but to allow people to broaden their horizon about what good grading practices are and to give permission to use them.
I did have just one question. So something, I know there's a speak out last year regarding technology and its use in the classroom. However, I was wondering how the policies, perhaps that maybe they're not necessarily covered, how they adapt to technology and the use of homework and assignments that can potentially be submitted, that have deadlines at different times during the day. I know my little brother, he's in the middle school, and I know from other people as well, in terms of timing, you can have assignments that are, due at midnight on Friday or, midnight on Saturday, and they kind of take it a little bit outside the normal procedures. I was wondering, I know it wasn't so much considered within this presentation, but do you know if that's something that maybe that could be considered for the future, is just kind of taking that new approach with internet-based homework, if that's something that these could maybe consider?
We can absolutely have that conversation, and I think some of that will come in teams having conversations at the middle school level, and as we see the one-to-one move, I think that's when that happens, right? Because that's all of a sudden the time you can start requiring a submission at midnight on a Saturday night. I didn't mention it, but I did hear some in the open-ended response concerns about still giving assignments that are required over the weekend and over breaks, and we have to be careful about that because that is family time and we don't know what other engagements students have, and certainly if we continue to see that, we will need to have more conversations around it.
So just to address Cameron's question a little bit, one of the things that when we write policy or regulations, it has to be broad enough, deep enough, but yet flexible enough to stand the test of time. So just imagine doing all those things with words. And I think that part of the issue we always run into is people grabbing certain words or certain sentences and then telling a story with it that's well beyond the regulation itself. And so when you think about what you just said, we don't make reference to thou shalt think about technology, but if I'm a teacher that's using technology, I'm thinking about, okay, is the homework assignment something that kids can complete on their own? Technology allows me to assign things in different ways, but can the kids actually do that on their own? Does technology allow kids to get immediate feedback? That's one of our essential things. So when we think about the essential objectives, if you will, or elements, we try to think about that, and then over time, how can those things be adopted or adapted is probably a better word, to different teaching style, different situation, different classes, because it's a policy that impacts everything that we do. So your question is a very good one, and that's where we continue to try to provoke that type of thinking in both students and educators to say, let's not think about this thing as a one-size-fits-all, because we couldn't write a policy long enough to hit every circumstances or nuances that happen in classrooms. But we could be broad enough, but yet with enough guidance that people can say, okay, you know what? Yeah, if I really look at this and look at these elements, am I doing this right now? And we're saying that if you're doing this right now, okay, we're with you. But if you look at these elements and you're thinking, I'm not, and your students are saying, you're not, then you got to think about then why not. And that's all I think. So the implementation in the next year is actually really asking people to go back and look and think about that perspective. In some cases, the old cliche, walk into someone else's shoes for a period of time, and then you realize, how does it feel, and do you want to be in that situation? And probably the most telling things is when you have teachers with kids in the system, and they have both parent hat on and teacher hat on, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, in many cases, a lot of those teachers shift there because they see what it's like when their kids coming home and saying, whoa, this is not good because I'm not doing this to my kids, or I should be doing this, or whatever the situation might be. So, and I think this is all a part of our process, and back to Mr. Delato's question, that when we think about these policies, it's not a technical piece, because if it was just a technical piece, we would force people into little squares and say, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do. It's about how do we enhance the overall culture of learning within the school community. When I say school community, the broader school community. How do we say to parents who are overzealous, stop, you're killing your kid, you're going to burn them out? And versus how we say to the parents that, hey, you probably need to push your kid a little bit more as well. So the balance, if you will, the spectrum. And so how do we create that culture of learning that provides that neat balance that we have, and that a lot of the kids you saw tonight and a lot of your peers bring to the table, that they want to do good work, but also want to be able to make sure it's a balance in what we do and how we do it, and that the experience is a quality experience. Because quite frankly, a teacher whose kids are being tortured, that teacher's not having fun either. And so why are we doing something that no one is enjoying the experience? And so why not enjoy the experience and learn while we're in the process? So probably simplify, but at the end of the day, that's the mindset we want people to bring to the table, and that's the mindset we want students to bring to the table. Dr. Wood said to me about a story about having a conversation with a kid, because we want students to be empowered to have the conversation with their teacher. Just say, yeah, I know I screwed up on that first thing, but my God, look what I'm doing now. Does this not say that I've actually mastered the content in the way that you want me to master it? And, and those are real conversations, because that empowerment piece is also an important piece of the conversation, that when kids go, they can be self-advocates. And I think that's one of the biggest things we want kids to be, self-advocates. That's one of the biggest things. If they learn nothing else, how to advocate for yourself becomes one of the greatest skills that you're bringing to adulthood. So we hope that we're trying to do some of the things with that policy.
I just want to commend Cameron for his remarks that speak out too, because you were one of the first ones to say, we procrastinate, and own that, because that's a culture change for students as well, and I appreciated that feedback too. One thing that struck me in the survey responses were the number of I don't knows. So I see, professional development is going to continue. I hear you say there are people who are done with professional development, but I see that it's not maybe necessarily professional development so much as it is parental and student education. Maybe the teachers are more comfortable than the parents and the students, and so I think maybe going forward that educational piece for parents and students is going to be important. And the other really big, I think it's a really big shift, especially when you're talking about other opportunities like redos, for people to stop thinking about the grade and start thinking about the learning. When you think about it like that, it's a huge difference. And to get that cultural change, I don't just want the A, I want to understand. That's what has legs over time, really, and how we move people in that direction. If we're successful when we're successful with that, our students are really going to get even more traction throughout Shen and beyond.
I'm so glad you said that. And with reasonable parameters around the redo, it's not, we had some middle schoolers, really progressive middle school science teacher who, the students, I want to do a redo today after school. Not yet. You just took the assessment. I don't know that you've learned a whole lot more in the interim, setting reasonable parameters around it to make sure that it's about the learning, to make sure that it's not just about that increasing the grade. But now we're gonna meet after school. This is the work you're going to do in the interim before we come back and assess this again, to make it truly authentic about learning.
I'll tell you, Mary, to that point that you were talking to, I've got a 6th grader, so now you've got the introduction of the Chromebooks. The nice thing about that, one of the points up there about the homework not knowing where it is, that was nice because it was there. Everything is there on that Chromebook, everything they need, they know where to go. I think that fixes that issue, if you will. The downside is the focus on the grades. I had to turn off my campus portal every time I got a grade because I was just micromanaging that and seeing, Morgan, what'd you do with this grade? Adam, how come you got that grade and everything? Instead of looking at the big picture of, okay, their grade is okay. And so as a parent, that's where we need to step back and say, okay, we can't micromanage every single grade they get. And that's hard.
That's right. Because such a good point, and we have to bring it back to how we are as adults. We are not as productive every hour of the day in the same way. We have to give latitude for the overtime measurement.
So,
I have one, I don't want to belabor this point, but I have heard from different parents as well, and you touched on it, where you have kids that, want to do it all. They're high achievers. They are in 8th grade, and they are taking these advanced courses, and they're up till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're getting up, and they want to go in early because they're in student council or they're National Junior Honor Society. Worried, the parents are worried. They want, the kid wants to do it. The parents want them to do it, but where is that? And they're athletic too. Where do you?
I think Deanna, and I'm not putting our counselors on the spot, and I'm sure it's not a part of their presentation, but I think one of the things that our counselors have been very good at, and if I'm wrong, I doubt if I'm wrong on this, is having more conversation with kids about balance, of really talking about those things, because when we shift as education to this college or bust, it became overzealousness, over perseveration on, oh my God, if my kid isn't doing this, and that's not a healthy thing as well. So that's the balance that we have, and I think that when you hear some of the stuff that the counselors and some of the things that we're talking about, our counseling plan, and so how some of those things have shifted, it's a part of the overall picture. I'm throwing it in because, ironically, that's the presentation that's coming up. It shows how all these things have to interface with each other, how different aspects of the school community has to be in alignment, at least enough, so we can have consistent conversations, because you heard the conversation, community conversation, where the parents are alluding to, like, relax. Your kid doesn't have to get in Harvard in 8th grade. It's okay. It's absolutely okay. Your kid will be fine. How do we create that dynamic so kids don't lose a sense of significance or sense of aspiration and those kind of things? But how do we avoid, if I don't do this, I'm an absolute loser, and the kid here saying, well, I can't do this, so I must be a loser. So how do we create this much more dynamic environment for kids? And so it's what's happening here, and I'm sure that the counselors who are here tonight with Mr. Ripchick can vouch for that, because it's always, we're in a super competitive, hyper, everybody has to do 50,000 applications kind of environment, and it's kind of like, whoa, baby, just relax for a second here. Let's talk about experience, and how does this align with who you are and what you want to be, and what you can really commit quality time to. I think that's the truth. And sometimes we feel like parents, but that's what, as educators, that's where we are. We have to act like reasonable parents would in our systems and our process. And reasonable parents is pretty even kill in some way here, not on either end of the constraints. So your point is well taken. So that might be a good segue too. And so Mr. Ripchick is here, and my apologies to his team that I told Mr. Ripchick that he would be out of here by 7:15. So he probably told him that otherwise, but they're troopers, and it was great also for our counselors to hear about some of the homework piece, because they're dealing with from the other side. When they talk about course selections and grades and kids in crisis and all those kind of things, all come from that experience. So.
Yeah, a great segue, Dr. Robinson, and appreciate, first of all, the counselors that are here tonight. Support your colleagues, Erica Rock from the elementary, Linda Coy from the middle school, and Mike Carpentier from the high school. Tonight we're going to present and we're pleased to present the updated K-12 comprehensive counseling plan. The counseling plan frames in broad terms the counseling program here at Shenendehowa. The objective of the counseling plan is to provide structure to the complex and evolving role of counseling and the work of the counselors in our Shen schools every day as they support our students in their learning. You'll note that on the slide here that there's 5 primary areas of focus. The priority is always to the needs of the students, specifically in the areas of academic, social, and emotional supports. Additionally, the counseling plan stresses the importance of closing gaps in achievement, keeping the work focused on articulated goals, and ensuring that these goals are developed based on data from our students, and presenting student profiles. The counseling plan works to ensure the students at each level are developmentally appropriate and supporting the diversity of Shen students and the diversity of their needs. Over the course of the school year, each level has been committed to continuous improvement. As each person presents, you're going to see that there's a continuum, K-12, and that the elementary is providing a foundation for each level to build upon. At this point, I'm going to introduce Erica, and they're each going to...
All right. Good evening. I'm Erica Rock. I'm the counselor at Octay Elementary. So I'm just going to go over a few of the things that we've been working on as elementary counselors together to try to make sure that we're really unified in doing the same thing across each building, because we're sort of an island in that we don't have a curriculum like math or ELA or the other subjects do. So we're kind of creating our own based on things that we're finding that are successful or research-based, and trying to make sure that students across each building are getting the same information, so that if they transfer from one building to the next, they will have gotten the same information. So first thing that's on there is the implementation of the second step curriculum that was purchased by the district for us last year. We got it at the end of the year, so when we met together as a group over the summer, we opened up the kits, we looked through it, and we said, where can we start with this? Because we need to really pick a starting point that we can do, everyone can do in their building this year. So we picked kindergarten as our target grade level to start with, and really looked at the first unit within that curriculum, which was really the skills for learning. That's something that all kindergartners need as they come into a new setting, whether they've had preschool or not. They need to learn kind of how to learn within our buildings. So we went over that, and as a group implemented second step, at least in kindergarten. There were many of us who also tried it out in different grade levels as well, but as a group, we really committed to doing that in kindergarten this year. The second thing you'll see is the continued focus on cultural competence. I know that that was a big talk at Superintendent's Conference Day. It's something we talk about within our buildings, but it's also something we need to be addressing with our students. So across the district, all 8 buildings do a bully prevention week as well as bully prevention month in the month of October. It's something we've done before, but we're continuing to do that and build on that. We all were part of the No Place for Hate initiative as well as all the other Shen buildings, so we participated in that. We also implemented a kindness week in February, which obviously we want kids to be kind more than just in February during that 1 week, but it's a way to raise awareness and have some more conversations within, building level, classroom level, just as a way to to bring that topic to the forefront again. We did a lot of information on autism awareness because many of us have autistic students within our buildings, but also, I know particularly in my building, we have our functional skills development classes. So we do a lot of community building to make sure that those students are an active part of our community. And throughout the other buildings, there was a lot of push to do that as well. And then within our classroom lessons, again, the second step lessons, which we were doing, have a whole piece on cultural competence within there as well. So looking at students and seeing how can they be alike, how are they different, and then how can we all make sure that everyone's treating each other fairly. As you move on to the next slide, it talks about the expanded focus on mindfulness. This kind of ties into some of that whole piece with, there was some of the conversation within Elizabeth's presentation about, how sometimes kids get stuck in that rut of I can't do this. And it's really trying to get them out of that fixed mindset and moving into the growth mindset of I can do this. And feeling optimistic that they can move from feeling like they can't move forward or feeling like they can't accomplish things to feeling like they can. Within mindfulness, we also have worked on implementing things like the calm classroom. That's not something that we're doing alone, though. That really takes a whole community. So getting classroom teachers to find the time daily, multiple times a day, to take a 2-minute break to do a mindful moment, it's called, where it's just you turn everything off. If you're doing the mindful moment, you actually play a recording, and it asks you to, close your eyes and picture something, and it walks the kids through what they should be doing. There are also things throughout the second step curriculum. The same people who develop the second step curriculum also develop something called Mind Yeti, which is another thing. It's kids can have access to it from home and families, so we put information about that as well in our newsletter, but we can also do those within our classrooms. We have a couple of counselors at the elementary level who are certified in yoga for classrooms, so trying to kind of work some of that into our practice within going into classrooms and helping students to kind of see the benefits of yoga, or how at least get them to try it, because some of them look at us when I say, oh, we're going to try yoga today, and they're like, I'm not doing that. So, getting them to try something different. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have them balancing on one leg and, trying to do really complicated things, but at least just sitting in their chair, doing some of the seated postures to at least focus on their breathing and helping them to calm down and kind of find their balance again. And like I said, we put information about the mindfulness in our quarterly newsletter that we send home to families every time, so that there's some new information going home to families. And then at the end of the year, in our June newsletter, we'll be adding some literature that families can read if they're interested in learning more. And finally, to wrap it up, we are working on becoming better at career awareness, because that's one of those things that we really need to start at the elementary level. We can't wait till students are in high school and say, hey, what do you think you want to do when you grow up? It's kind of too late for them to really start researching that. So we did, as a group, decide to commit and add it into our counseling plan that at least at the 5th grade level, we would be implementing career awareness lessons, and we came up with something that we were going to do. We've all done it, and now we've had some talk about how we want to change it now a little bit and do something that's maybe a little bit better. And I know that we're also working within our different buildings on working on getting some career awareness involved into 3rd and 4th grade as well. So those are some of the things that we're really focusing on in elementary.
Questions for on elementary? Because we'll break up.
All right, so my name's Linda Coy. I am the 7th grade counselor this year in Gowanna. We loop with our kids, so I will be an 8th grader next year. For our first one for the middle school, collecting data, that's huge in the middle school. I would say one of the biggest ways that we collect data in the middle school is working with our IST committees, which is our instructional support teams. It's a collaborative effort. There's administrators, there's the teachers on our teams, there's ourselves. And we all come together to work with our high-needs students who are not being successful currently. And I would say that the counselor plays a pretty integral role. We are kind of the gatekeepers of all the information. We have their attendance piece, we have their behavior piece, we have their grades, we have kind of all of the information that we can kind of put together for them to make a productive meeting for them and to help the teachers come up with strategies to make some of those students who are not currently being successful in their classes successful. Cultural competency and proficiency, I'm actually going to connect that along with, on the next slide, our No Place for Hate. The two, to me, really for the middle school, really work hand in hand together. No Place for Hate this year, we took on the initiative again, and our NJHS kids, so our National Junior Honor Society kids, went into homeroom classes and got all of the students in our building to sign a pledge, try building. So every student in the middle school complex signed this pledge saying that they would be respectful, acknowledge cultural differences, understand what their own bias may be for cultural differences, and to continue to assess themselves throughout the course of the year, and to be willing to learn and gain more knowledge based on diversity issues. So that was really where cultural diversity and proficiency for me kind of really went hand in hand with No Place for Hate. Naviance. Naviance is huge for us, and this is now our 3rd year running Naviance in the middle school. And it was interesting, I was just in a meeting with the high school, and they said that they're starting to now see the positive outcomes of us doing the Naviance program in the middle school carrying over to the high school. We go try building 6 through 8. We do various lessons with the students throughout the course of the year, whether it's 2 lessons or 3 lessons. It depends on the grade level. And it's pretty much their first introduction really to careers and what's out there for them, and connecting what they're going to be taking in the high school and the program of studies and how it connects to real life for them later on. But we're always looking to improve and change our lessons. This year, actually, for 7th grade, we introduced a whole new lesson and introduced something called Road Trip Nation, which is a really cool aspect of the Naviance program. The 7th grade students take a quick 5-question questionnaire. They answer the questions, and then their Road Trip Nation videos are geared towards their answers and their outcome from their questions that they answered. And they're academic centered, they're career centered. They're pretty cool, the videos that are out there. No place for hate, I already did. And then mental health. Mental health is huge for us in the middle school. This year, it's really, I would say, one of the biggest aspects of our job that we do work with the kids. We have an amazing alliance with Ellis and Saratoga Center for the Family. I can't tell you how many times we utilize their services. It's a smooth transition for the kids that do need to utilize those services. We're constantly using the district's crisis assessment forms. They've come in very handy. They're easy to use. The parents appreciate them. Coming up with safety plans and the parent contracts, and it really is working really nicely together. And I think that just looking at my parents that I've worked with this year, I think that they all have been really happy with how things have played out. From beginning to end, from me meeting with their students to them coming and taking their students in the next step, carrying on to an outside counselor or provider, or taking them to the Ellis aspect. So that's pretty much middle school. I think for next year, two of our main goals, I think, are working on more mindfulness. We do have the students coming in from the elementary school that are familiar with mindfulness, so trying to incorporate that a little bit more into the middle school. And we are hoping to be able to bring in a HOPS program, which it's a homework organizational planning study skills kind of program. So we're hoping to take different aspects of that and try to mold it together into a program that we are going to try to facilitate to our students next year and see how it works. So, any
Just a
questions?
thought, and PJ, you might bring this up at some point too. I mean, I know we have Jessica Leahy coming in September,
Yes.
and I'm sure you guys are all. But you know, some of the things she talks about in there. I mean, we talk about mindfulness, but you know, at the same time, when kids are getting older, they need that resiliency. There are certain aspects in that book, that characteristics of a kid, that becomes more important. So I know we put a lot of, and I know in the last couple of years we've been talking a lot about mindfulness, but you know, maybe incorporating some of those thoughts out of that book and start to build off of that as that comes out.
Definitely.
I'm just
Yeah.
talking aloud.
For middle school?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I owe Mike a dinner, by the way. He owes me a dinner. Oh, he owes me more than that. I'm Mike Carpentier, one of the counselors at High School East, and I'll give you an update of the various topics that we're talking about tonight that we've put into practice this year at High School East. Just reflecting back on what Dr. Robinson talked about balance and student balance, taking multiple APs. I had students, I think my high this year, a student applied to 24 colleges. I do have students who are up at 2 o'clock in the morning doing homework and studying and prepping, and I have kids that want to take 4 or 5 APs. And as a group, we did come together and stress the important fact, the idea of balance. I don't want to see that same student, a week later in my office with stress levels up to here and anxiety issues. And so as a group, we definitely are sending that message. First, to start things off, as a 9-12 counseling group, we developed our progression chart by grade level that can be found on the district website. For culturally responsive learning and counseling, we adopted a practice this year during our team meetings once a month where we kind of research articles on cultural responsiveness and how it impacts students. And we do share outside our monthly meetings. And it's really eye-opening, some of the information that's out there. And we've come a long way in understanding what the needs of students are and how they interpret things, and become just more educated overall on cultural diversity. Counselors also this year at East were able to push into health classes and collaborate with health teachers on a lot of difficult topics in response to some cultural responsive difficulties that are out there, and really made good collaboration effort along with the health teachers to help implement some of those messages to our students through health classes. High School East counselors also facilitated breakout sessions as part of the high school day of dialogue. Now I'm going to jump to the academic updates. I'm sorry. As far as the academic updates, as a group, We implemented a GPA, grade point average improvement student recognition program, and we really tried to focus on not the student who is always the high honor roll achiever, the 90 who jumps to a 95, but the students who don't get recognized, who for various reasons often struggle to maintain grades. Some of them are repeat 10th graders, repeat juniors, and I actually had a student this year who was a repeat 10th grader who had a 11-point GPA jump from third quarter to fourth quarter. And what we decided to do was simply mail home certificates. We have donations from stewards, and we teamed up with our partnership, did a partnership with the Shen Pride Committee, and we've given the kids gotcha passes for Student of the Month and that type of thing. And I just, as an example, I had a repeat 10th grader who found me. He was a very disengaged student for the 2 years that I've known him, and could see him potentially not getting to the finish line in the future. Sought me out. Okay, I don't think he ever said more than 10 words to me in the 2 years I've met him. And he had an 11-point jump in his GPA and got the certificate in the mail. He's living with a different family now, has a better home structure, and sought me out and thanked me and had tears in his eyes. So, made a huge impact on me, and he had a huge turnaround this year, and graduation is absolutely in the picture. Jumping to our IST committee, we received 66 referrals this year, and we're able to develop action plans for each one. Counselors also implemented a meet the counselor groups for our sophomores, and we, within the first 2 months of the school year, wanted our sophomores to put a name to a face, know what we do, know how they could reach us, where they can find us, how to make an appointment. So we did lunch groups with our sophomores, and we're able to get that important information across to them. We also handed out little, like a sticky pad with our name and contact information on the back, so they could put that in a safe place and have it if needed. In relation to emotional supports, we've been participating in various professional developments, most recently at Skidmore College, to learn more about the impact of mental health difficulties on college campuses and about the resources that are typically available on college campuses. This way we can communicate with parents before they get to the college campus if they have concerns or fears going forward, and give them an idea of some of the programs and resources that are typically available on most college campuses. We are also continually participating in suburban council meetings with the other suburban council counselors to discuss how other schools are handling a lot of the mental health difficulties that we are currently seeing. We're participating in various webinars in relation to topics such as suicide behaviors, to learn more about warning signs and the different behaviors that are typically associated with that. This year was the first year of our wellness center at High School East, and our counseling department collaborated consistently with the wellness center staff. The wellness center, my latest statistics show that they had over 6,800 visits this year, and we were able to assist when needed, and typically when crisis situations arose where they needed additional assistance or felt that we would be best suited to handle those students.
Mike,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just didn't hear what you said about
6,800 visits to the wellness center this year.
Thank you, thank you.
And finally, we continue to look at student needs and work with teachers on best practices and working with families to develop community referrals. Constantly giving out local resources, constantly getting authorization so we can speak directly to outside therapists and outside medical people so that they can see the big picture of what's going on during that child's school day. And last but not least, college and career readiness. We again hosted the spring and fall college fair. We've added an additional component to it by adding an admissions panel from local colleges so that parents could ask questions about the transition from high school to the college campus and what that looks like and some of the biggest issues that the kids typically face again, so they can plan accordingly and have a smooth transition onto a college campus. This year, as a department, we processed 3,864 college applications, up a few hundred from last year. We hosted a career day where local business owners and representatives from local businesses did a Q&A with a lot of our students, speaking about skills needed for certain jobs, what it takes to own and start your own business, and the knowledge, education, and experience needed for those various jobs. We continue to get extensive feedback from students and parents about what we call our drop-in labs, okay, in relation to the college application process, where students don't need to have an appointment with their counselor. There's always a counselor scheduled for a lunch period through the month of December. So if they have questions, they come during lunch. There's 2 counselors out front. They can walk in and we can help them with the application process. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that. Financial aid night was moved to June, as the FAFSA window is now moved from January 1st to October 1st. So we figure if we do it in June and get that information out there, it's fresh in their head. It's based on prior years' tax forms now. So these should be, hopefully they're easier and more accessible to those parents. And we feel that the timeline for that was appropriate to move it to June so that information is ready to go come October 1st. We are now participating in Naviance webinars about all the changes in the program that Naviance will implement for next year. And last but not least, we coordinated a job fair to connect students to potential employers just last week. And what was the total number of students?
We had about 70 students go over to the Chamber of Commerce to participate in that.
Awesome.
We had 10, I believe it was 10 businesses that came looking to hire students for summer employment.
So those are some things we're doing this year at the high school.
Thank you.
Just a couple things to add. As part of the RAMP application this year, one of our goals was a gap closing of a certain group, and I'd be remiss not to mention that again this year, the high school West counselors have targeted students, at-risk students coming from the 8th grade building. They work in collaboration with their 8th grade counselors to identify at-risk students, understanding that our goal is to try to get those students to that 5-credit achievement to be able to get to 10th grade. The data will support that if a student doesn't get to that 5 credits, that they'll struggle tremendously to try to get to, as Mike said, the finish line. So this year, they targeted 22 students. Currently, right now, 20 are on that level of getting there. 2 are borderline, and they're working really hard to get them to achieve those necessary credits. They target their curriculum, academic meetings, portal checks, SMART goals, after-school activities, all things that they do as part of the action plan for those students. Transitioning those students over to High School East, several of those kids will go on to the alternative ed program, which we've reported out has been very successful. And even the students who choose not to go to that program, we're starting to target resources and plans for those students coming over the East, whether it be a structured study area or trying to target academic planning for them, looking at their schedules and working through that. So Mrs. Carmen apologized for not being able to be here tonight.
She's here.
Oh, she is. Where is she?
Shut up.
Oh, there you are, Becky. So, and just for reference, our K-12 plan has been formally updated. It also references the new Part 100 that just got passed by New York State Ed. And we were already ahead of the curve on that, in which we had put the items in there, knowing that it was coming and knowing that we always wanted to be in front of that. So it is referenced in the new document. Also, we've updated the calendar, so anything that they've spoke about tonight is reflected in that document.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time and being here. I think Mrs. Blaber had to unfortunately leave, so.
Yep. Okay, at this point, we'll move over to action items. And first on the list is certification of the 17-18 budget vote. Motion to proceed with this, Mr. Gilbert, and second, Mrs. Stevenson. Comments, questions? All in favor? Second one is certification of the bus purchase proposition. Motion for this? Mr. Casey, second Mrs. Stevenson. Comments, questions? All in favor? Third one, certification of the board member vote, 2 seats. Can Mr. Casey vote
It
on?
probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Okay, so motion to bring this, Mr. Jalal, second, Mr. Gilbert. Any comments or questions?
Congratulations to Naomi and Bill.
Congratulations. Okay, all in favor? Okay, 4 and 1 abstain. Final is the bond resolution, delivery of truck and buses. Motion for this one. Mr. Casey, second Mrs. Stevenson. Comments, questions? All in favor? Okay. At this point, we'd like to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Gilbert, second Mrs. Stevenson. All in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. Next meeting, June 6th. Thank you.